Okay. As I was drawing here, I was
So that's why you're drawn to sit there. Okay, so we already did our prayers. So this is class 9, so we're getting there. We're nearly done. So, alright, so we are still in the Diamond Cutter Sutra, and the text continues, and it reaches a point now where Subhuti asks Lord Buddha, what should we call this sutra? And Lord Buddha answers, we should call it the perfection of wisdom, which is, say, Sherab, Ki, Paro, Tuchimba. So that means the perfection of wisdom. So that's what Lord Buddha said, but the text is called the Diamond Cutter Sutra, right? So who named it the Diamond Cutter Sutra? We don't know that. But this was the very first book that was ever printed, and it was printed as the Diamond Cutter Sutra. So that's kind of interesting. Somebody, and who knows, maybe it was Lord Buddha, I don't know. But it's not, because in this text he says you should call it the perfection of wisdom. So somebody made that connection between a diamond and this sutra, right? So that's kind of cool. So the perfection of wisdom, there's 4 kinds of that. And I'm sorry I didn't get the board out with the Tibetan writing, so just if you want to write it down, you just gotta guess, write it down, I guess. So the 4 kinds of perfection of wisdom. The first one is called the natural perfection of wisdom. So the natural perfection of wisdom means, really, it means emptiness. Okay. And emptiness has never inspired a bad thought in anybody who has seen it directly. So emptiness is ultimate reality. Is this positive or negative? Emptiness. Is it a positive or negative thing?
No.
It's negative in the sense that it's an absence, right? It's not a positive thing, something you can touch. So it's a negative thing in that sense. It's an absence. It has no cause. So things that have causes, what happens is that, something comes into being, then it fluctuates, and then it slowly starts to die off, right? In stages, but emptiness doesn't do that. It has no cause, so it cannot slowly come into existence, stay for a little while, and then slowly die off. It doesn't work like that, because it's something that doesn't exist, so it couldn't work like that. Okay. So emptiness is negative, uncaused, and unchanging. The emptiness never changes. Cannot have, say, if we talk about the emptiness of this cup, you cannot have more emptiness or less emptiness. The emptiness is a lack of it being a cup, right? The fact that an object is never anything but our own projections will never change. But emptiness does come into existence and goes out of existence. When this cup has been made, then this cup, lacks a self-nature, so it has an emptiness. If the cup no longer exists, then the absence of cup isn't there anymore either, right? It's tricky. Mm-hmm. It's tricky to talk about something that doesn't exist. But that's the first meaning that's the first type of the perfection of wisdom. Okay, natural. Is that what I said?
Yes, natural.
Yeah, natural perfection of wisdom, meaning emptiness. Okay, the second type of perfection of wisdom is textual. So that is like any kind of written or verbal teaching that presents, the Mahayana path and its result. So the teachings, like we're doing right now, the teachings on the Dharmakaya Sutra would be, you could consider it a textual perfection of wisdom. So this perfection of wisdom is positive. It's something that's, I can touch these, I can read these things, the words, and flip through the pages, right? So it's a positive thing. It's changing. It's coming in and out of existence, right? It's created, either in the form of audio or visual, yeah? So that's the second type. And then the third type of perfection of wisdom is called path perfection. The path perfection is defined as the wisdom of a bodhisattva. And the wisdom of a bodhisattva is imbued with wisdom and method. Right? Wisdom being correct view, understanding karma and emptiness. Method being that wish of wanting to help other people. Wanting to see everybody without pain. That's the bodhicitta, the method. So the definition of that path perfection, you could say, is the wisdom of bodhisattva, which is completely soaked in the understanding of emptiness, plus having the wish to become enlightened, to help all beings, which, is compassion. So they say, this being, this bodhisattva, it's completely imbued, soaked, ingrained, whatever you want to call it. And they have to say that because when you see emptiness directly, even though they cannot have a conceptual thought in that moment, still their being is still soaked with bodhicitta, right? It's not like you don't have bodhicitta in that moment that you see emptiness directly, but you just cannot think about it at that moment. It doesn't mean you don't have it. It's like in your subconsciousness. Yeah, I want to say that. So it imbues his entire being, but just not manifested at that moment. So this one is a positive one also, and you can say it's changing. It grows and it dies every moment as the mind changes. Then the last one is called the result perfection of wisdom. And the result perfection of wisdom, only the Buddha can have that one. Okay. So when you ask, like, out of these four, which one is like the real perfection of wisdom, it would be this one, because he has realized now, the Buddha has omniscience, knows everything. So he has perfected himself, right? But, if you talk about a bodhisattva, the person that has wisdom and has that wish to help other beings, it doesn't mean that, basically you could say that, okay, they haven't quite perfected themselves yet, but by doing all these activities they do, they'll be there very soon. All the good deeds that they do in the world are all perfectionizers. They will make them into number 4, into a Buddha. Right? And just like us, if you're not a Buddha yet, all the good things you do will contribute to the perfection of you, and especially if you can have wisdom on your mind, karma and emptiness, trying to understand that, then that will become, the result will become that you will be perfect. Right? So the result, perfection of wisdom, so the wisdom of a Buddha. And this one is also positive, it's changing, it's mental, and it dies out moment to moment. So even the Buddha's wisdom dies out moment to moment. Because the Buddha is constantly changing. Okay. And then Lord Buddha says to Subhuti, so does this perfection of wisdom even exist? And as we've gone many times, right, what does Subhuti say? No, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, but it does. But it doesn't, It doesn't exist from its own side. It can only exist as a projection. Yeah. So that's what kind of, the moral of the story that we keep hearing, right? And that's for a reason. So we're just now going.
So can I ask?
Yeah. It is taped. You don't want.
No, I just want to ask a question. So always getting back to this point of it is a projection. It's a projection.
Mm-hmm.
And so there must be some way to raise a whole generation of children understanding that it's a projection, rather than, isn't there, taking on all this pain, because not accepting that everything is a projection is pain, is suffering.
It's true.
Right?
It's true.
So they suffer from the get-go.
Yeah, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if we could raise, but the thing is that a lot of people are not ready for that type of information. It's a little bit crazy, like it's opposite to what most of us think, and it's opposite of what most of us want to hear. It's often comforting to blame other people for things that aren't going well in your day, and it's not easy to take responsibility because it means that you're responsible for everything, right?
That's quite learned behavior, so that's what I'm saying. It would be
if you would start, no, it's true. But the people who would raise this new generation, there would need to be enough of those,
right.
Which is, it's a rare karma to hear this information and to understand it and to implement it. There are not very many people, on this planet of so many people that can hear it and that can do it. So.
I've noticed if I mention some of these teachings to my daughter, who's 9, she'll come back with, karma isn't real. So I've realized, and also from some of the other teachings, that you can't say anything. I think you just have to be a role model, right? And then then Satota might kind of go, or not. Maybe she doesn't have the karma for these teachings at all. And that's...
Well, I mean, I the kids I work with, I actually get them to that, where they can sort of separate an aspect of themselves, and then as a witness, and I mean, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and as the witness, then they can have that separation, and then they can feel a whole other feeling, right? I mean, because they have these wonderful imaginal minds. So, there's so much. But I'm just thinking that if you did it even before that, right? Like where, right, they wouldn't get to that, even that point.
Yeah. It's a great thought, great thing to think about. Yeah, and I do think in other cultures, like in Tibet, they would,
Do they?
Yeah, but now it's changed because of the Chinese invasion. But just like the Christian people in Europe, I guess, where you get raised with certain ideas and going to church and all that is implemented on a young age. Over there, it's this, right? This is their normal way of living, normal ideas. But now it's, much of it has come to the West, and now it's up to us to kind of carry that forward. So, yeah, it would be wonderful to see at some point, what you're thinking, but I don't know. It would be so beneficial. And then, some children, some people will not have the karma for it, to hear it, There's people that live in a monastery for years and they still are not acting moral, so they still haven't understood why it's important, So there's that. Yeah. But anyways, if you can teach those that are ready and that are open, then that's wonderful. And sometimes it takes a special kind of person like yourself, I mean, what pops up from my mind right now is my son. He goes skateboarding sometimes with a friend and his dad, and they're very Christian. And he loves this dad because he's an awesome skateboarder and he's a leader on all these camps for skateboarding. But every time before they start skateboarding, he tells them about the Bible or about Jesus or something. And I would never, ever be able to say anything to my son about Jesus. He would not want to hear nothing about it. But this guy that he adores is able to say something to him. And I would think that then my son wouldn't like him anymore because he doesn't want to hear about it. But it's not the case. He thinks this guy is amazing. So sometimes it takes this special person that you see as, higher than yourself, as amazing, somebody you look up to because they are skilled in things that you're interested in, and then it can pop. But I could not force anything like this or anything about church Christianity. I could not force anything on anybody. They have to be ready and they have to see you a certain way. So there's that. So you have this perfect little setting with this group of kids that are very open and that want to hear that because they respect you, and that's a beautiful situation to be in. Yeah.
I was just thinking.
Yeah. It's good to think about this. Okay, so we'll get into the meaning of Majjhimika. So, Majjhimika, Mara means middle or medium. And really what this refers to is, so Majjhimika is these types of teachings, right, that we're doing. There's different schools of Buddhism, and this is the middle way, it's called. So what that means is, I was going to make a nice drawing, but you can visualize it. Basically, what you can picture is like a mountaintop, and that's your goal. That's where you want to go. And then you walk on this path, it can be a windy path to get to your goal. And it's a very narrow path. And on either side, there's cliffs, okay? And it's not like a little ditch. It's like, if you fall down, you're gone, okay? So we don't want to fall off any of the cliffs. We want to stay on this path, on this road to get to our goal, okay? So that is the meaning of the Majjhimika teachings, of the middle way. We want to stay in the center. We want to stay in the middle. And what are those two cliffs? So in Tibetan, we call it Ta, which means extreme. So we have two extremes on either side, okay? And one is the extreme. Let me just see. The extreme of existence is the first one. And also, you know, not only do you die when you fall down, you're like screwed for lifetimes, okay? So it's not just, was it only just one time? You're done. No, this is like a big problem for many lifetimes to come. So we don't want to fall off these cliffs. So the one cliff is the extreme of existence. And that means thinking that everything you see is the way they are.
It's reality.
Yeah. And the other one is thinking that because things are empty, nothing matters. Oh, it's empty anyways. I can just go and steal this or that or hurt that person because it's empty anyways, right? Like that. And that second idea is not common. It's more of a reaction to a moment. It is due to being wrongly informed, or you have misunderstood teachings like these. So it's only a certain amount of people that would go here, because if you haven't heard these teachings, you cannot fall off that cliff. Okay. But the other cliff is the most common one, which, you know, thinking that everything is as it looks. The extreme of existence.
So, extreme of existence, are those two aspects of the extreme of existence, or one is, so everything you see as reality is the extreme of existence, and because things are empty, nothing matters is a different?
That's the second cliff.
And it's called the extreme of anything?
That is called the extreme of thinking things don't exist at all.
Of non-existence.
Mm-hmm. So the one side you think everything exists as it looks, and the other nothing exists, so nothing matters. Everything's just empty anyway, so it doesn't matter. I can do whatever the heck I want. I don't need to keep my morality like that, right? But it's, you know, it's tricky because things do look like they, you know, things do look like they aren't the way they seem. And we often get tripped up on it, you know, like all the time. And we decide things like, you know, I for instance, with Open Door Yoga, I've been working with them for a while, and I decided to quit the bigger job that I'm doing for them. And then, you know, I get all these people come up to me, and they know exactly why I quit, even though I didn't tell them. You know, they have all these ideas that I'm burned out, you know, and that I'm choosing to do this or that. And I'm thinking, what the heck are you even talking about? It's not even true. But for them, it's true. And they feel sorry for me. And they have a whole story made up about something that they don't even know, you know. So, you know, that's just a small example of how we think we know all the time. And I mean, that's your own perception, but you just assume that it's like that for the other person too. Or like when I was having the little guys when they were still really young, and my day would start at 4:00, and for me it felt like I've been up for hours, you know, by the time it was 6 a.m, and I feel like the whole world is up, so I start to phone friends or whatever, because if it's for me like that, it must be for everybody, like, you know, wrong views like that all the time, and you just make assumptions. Think you know something about a person, and it just turns out to be so different, right? Like that stuff.
Or you think something exists just because it's been seen.
Yeah, and it looks like that. It looks like that to you, and that's totally fine. But now we need to try to remember, okay, I'm only seeing it this way. I cannot choose that. It's forced upon me because of my past deeds. Like the way that I see this space right now, I cannot choose. I cannot think, okay, I don't like it here, but I want to like it here. No, if in this moment I feel a certain way, that's the way I feel, and it's fine. There's no problem with that. The problem is that we think it's the space's fault, or we think it's the person's fault that I'm feeling that way. No, it's my projection. It comes because of my past actions. It's why I can view this space as either beautiful or not, or a person as pleasant or not. It's not the person's fault. It's my interpretation of that person in that moment, which I have no control about, right? I'm forced to see that person that way. And, do people change? Your perception can change, I've had friends that I thought they would be my friends forever, and then they're not anymore. Or the other way around. I thought these people I didn't really like, and then they became good friends. What changed? Like my karma shifted. That's what changed. All of a sudden I can see them as pleasant, while before I couldn't. That's what's going on. So, we believe that what we see is correct, and that's just something we have to remind ourselves of over and over and over again, that it's not so, until it becomes automatic. Right?
Interesting, because the media also plays into it.
Oh,
big time. You hear of stories of Vancouver, it's interesting.
And that's the path to healing, right? So that you can, the people that tend not to heal are the people who hold on to that karma and see it as existing.
I think that's true, because you keep cycling, keep cycling in your own stories, in believing them, instead of what we're trying to do here is getting out of all those stories, right?
Yeah,
it's hard. It is hard.
I know so many people that have so many fears and struggles.
Yeah. And they're all based on misperception, all of them. So because things are empty, because nothing has a self-nature, it's a good thing, because it means that you have the power to change your world. You have the power to do certain actions, plant certain seeds, plant certain karmas that will then ripen into a world that is eventually paradise, right? So it's a good thing. Because otherwise, what would be the point, If things were the way they seem, if things were self-existent, then they couldn't change. If, this neighbor of yours was self-existently a not pleasant person, then he could not change into a nice person.
Or someone else could not see him as a nice person. He'd always have to be.
He'd always be that nasty man.
Yeah.
So, because it's not like that, we can start seeing him as nice.
Yeah. I had that experience with my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now he's giving me cards, and
he mows your lawn.
He mows my lawn. It's amazing. And him and I used to be like Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So if you
did you visit your shift?
Oh, it was me that.
So you
shift.
You
Yeah,
shifted, and then everything shifted after that.
I don't know. I think so.
Wow.
No, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So you can change all the people in your world one by one by changing yourself, right? By changing your view, by acting morally in the world, acting in a kind, compassionate manner, which will result into nice people, nice things, and you feel abundant, and eventually, if you keep other beings in your mind and if you see emptiness directly, you will turn into a being that's always in bliss, that doesn't ever get stuck in all those stories anymore. So, in the reading, Jason Kappa gives a line on how to get rid of these two cliffs. So this is a higher school teaching, right? It's not the same like that in the lower schools, but we're doing the higher school. So basically, he says you need to say Nangwe Yuta Sel. So Sel means dispels. Nangwe is understanding dependent origination. You remember what dependent origination is?
Is that the parts piece? When
you
see a thing but you're able to see all the different
You see
parts.
That, you label it, right? And which is on the path of preparation, right? Before you see emptiness directly, you will have this experience where you see, oh my God, I'm actually, all these little parts that I see, I cannot even see the back, but somehow my mind creates this picture of it, labels it as this is a teapot, whatever, right? So if you want to get rid of the two cliffs, this is one thing you need to do. You need to understand that everything is your projection. You are looking at mental images in your mind. So you have to try to understand how you are making these projections. So if you understand that, then you will not fall into that extreme of thinking that things are self-existent. You understand that, looking at a kettle or teapot is based on a certain data. What is that?
I'm having a projection. Okay. That's not.
Well, you won't be able to rub it out. So that's the one thing. So to understand that you are projecting. And then the second way of dispelling is say Tongpe Metta Self. So Tongpe is understanding emptiness. Cell is dispels. And Metta is the belief that nothing exists. Right? So that's the other cliff where we think nothing exists or nothing matters. So in order to not fall for that, we need to understand emptiness. And what I was just saying, because things are empty, everything does matter. Because things are empty, things can change. The nasty neighbor can turn into a very pleasant man who mows your lawn. Yeah? Because things are empty, things can become paradise. So when you understand that, you understand that you shouldn't go robbing people or yelling at someone or whatever, right? Because of this understanding, you will not fall off that cliff that you think nothing matters. Okay. Then we'll move on. It's a very short class, actually. Here's this sentence that contains 4 great facts two don't exist and two do exist. So the things, the two don't exist, say, Rangshin gi me kyang tenne mepa mayin. Rangshin gi me means nothing exists naturally. Nothing exists from its own side. Okay? Naturally refers to nothing exists from its own side. Kyang is but. Mayin is it's not that. Mepa is nothing exists. Tenne is that all. So what it means is nothing exists naturally, but it's not true that nothing exists at all. So nothing exists naturally from its own side, but it's not true that nothing exists at all. So it's true that nothing exists the way it seems, but it doesn't mean that nothing exists at all. Okay. So that's the two that don't exist. I'll say it one more time. Nothing exists naturally, but it's not true that nothing exists at all.
So that's two things?
Yeah.
So nothing exists as they appear,
Mm-hmm.
but they do exist based on your karma.
Exactly.
What you're being forced to.
They do exist based on your projections, which are forced by your karma.
Right.
So then the two that do exist, say, Tanye Tsamdu, Yu, Kyang, Rangshin-gi, Yupa, Mayin. So Tanye Tsamdu means in name only. Use everything exists. Kyang is but, Rangshin-gi is naturally, and Yupa means, everything exists. And Mayin is it's not that. Yeah, you lost it, right? Should I repeat that?
No.
No, it's good. Okay. So what does that mean? Everything exists in name only, which means everything exists as a projection. But it's not that everything exists naturally, meaning from its own side.
So how's that different from the first two?
It's not, but it's in
Oh,
another
I see.
way.
Reverse.
Yeah. So these are just all ways to make you think hard and to come always back to the same ideas, right? So I'll repeat it. Everything exists in name only. Everything exists as a projection, right? But it's not that everything exists naturally from its own side. So it's true that everything exists in name only through your projections, but it's not that everything exists naturally.
karma determines what exists. Basically.
Yeah.
What
What you
projections,
see.
what
Yeah.
projections exist
Yeah.
within you without you.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can draw those distinctions, if you can understand those two lines, with those four things in it, then you should not fall off the cliffs. And most of humanity will fall off the cliff. And they'll die and go somewhere bad. So this middle way, this Majjhimika way, where you go on this narrow road, is not for many people. It's not. So I'll repeat it one more time. It's true that nothing exists the way it seems, but it doesn't mean that nothing exists at all. It's true that everything is just a projection, and it works, but it doesn't mean it exists the way you thought it did. So we'll end the class with a little meditation, unless you have questions about it.